Hello, and welcome to the News in a Hurry for January 29th, 2013.
I'm William Welch, and this is my co-host, Travis Credit Card Fees Volker.
First up in weird news, a woman who was stabbed 10 times and then kicked in the head by her match has decided to sue Match.com for pairing the two of them. The suit amounts to $9.8 million. Match.com refers to the suit as absurd and explained they cannot be held responsible for the actions of a sick and twisted individual.
Moving on to science. Researchers found that waste heat from cities can influence weather patterns as far away as Europe. The study found that excess heat from the burning of fossil fuels to power cities, or from vehicles themselves, can rise into the upper atmosphere and change wind patterns. The actual effect on global temperatures is minimal, but this effect might help explain why some places are slightly warmer in winter than models predict.
While responses from former Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon were encouraging, doctors say they are not a sign that he will wake up from the coma he's been in since 2006. MRIs detected brain activity when Sharon was shown family photos and when asked to imagine his childhood home. New in health. Stomach feel like a rugby match in there? The new strain of the norovirus, which was originally identified in Australia, has reached the U.S. This strain, with its flu-like symptoms, has been responsible for more than 140 outbreaks here.
A new review of past evidence indicates that a placebo pill prevents headaches in children as well as most headache medicines. A neurologist and headache specialist at Children's Mercy Hospitals in Kansas City says parents should be aware that medication choices aren't as good as they should be. According to the doctor, no drugs have been rigorously tested and approved for preventing migraines in children.
Contaminated ground beef is responsible for 16 people sick with salmonella. Most of the cases were from Michigan, but there were cases spread over 5 states. 7 people got sick from eating a raw beef dish at a Detroit restaurant. A ground beef recall from the source manufacturer is currently in place.
Jumping into sports, President Obama's recent comments on the NFL have been backed by at least one NFL player.
Ed Reed, safety for the Baltimore Ravens, agrees with Obama that football needs to become safer. In an interview with the New Republic, President Obama stated, "Those of us who love the sport are going to have to wrestle with the fact that it will probably change gradually to try to reduce some of the violence."
He went on to explain that we might have to make the sport a little less exciting in the interests of safety and easing fans' consciences. Watch opposing coaches, who happen to be brothers, face off in Super Bowl 47 on CBS this Sunday. The San Francisco 49ers and Baltimore Ravens play in the biggest game of the year at New Orleans Mercedes-Benz Superdome, with a kickoff at 6:30 p.m. Eastern.
On the economy. Using your credit card might soon get a little more expensive. It recently became legal for stores to pass their credit card acceptance fees on to the customer. Typically, these fees range from 1 to 3% of the total purchase. The change does not affect debit cards, and there are still 10 states where it is illegal to pass the fee on to the customer.
A bipartisan group of 8 senators are agreeing on 4 guiding principles for a sweeping legislation of a rewrite of the United States immigration laws. Refer to our show notes for the senators involved.
In short, the principles are creating a path for illegal immigrants already here to become citizens, and awarding green cards to immigrants who get advanced degrees in science, math, technology, or engineering from an American university.
Employment verifications to ensure illegal immigrants aren't hired, and allowing more low-skill workers into the United States to be hired by employers who can prove U.S. citizens couldn't be recruited.
The annual March for Life drew an estimated 500,000 supporters who marched to the nation's capital on this, the 40th anniversary of Roe v. Wade. Media as a whole has come under fire for their lack of coverage of the event, and for the semantic name change from pro-life to anti-abortion. One statistic shows that Manti Te'o's fake girlfriend drew 521 times more coverage than the 500,000 protesters.
Lawmakers in North Carolina are having a discussion about drafting legislation to ban lottery sales to people on public assistance or in bankruptcy. Representative Stam said, "We are giving them welfare to help them live, and yet by selling them a ticket, we are taking away their money that is there to provide them the barest of necessities."
3 months after Hurricane Sandy, Congress has approved a $50 billion aid package for its victims. Typically, aid packages for victims of natural disasters are passed through Congress much faster than the 91 days this one took. Opponents to the aid package argue that it is too expensive and goes beyond just aid by providing funding for infrastructure improvements to protect the North Coast from future storms.
More than 300 barges have been delayed by the Mississippi River closure. The river was closed when 2 tanker barges struck a railroad bridge and one of them leaked an unknown amount of oil onto the river. The cleanup and river closure is expected to last the better part of a week. This closure is causing headaches for many, as the Mississippi River is the main shipping waterway from Midwest grain farms.
The Cub Scout of America Public Relations Director, Darren Smith, announced they are discussing potentially removing the national membership restriction regarding sexual orientation. He further explained the policy change would allow the religious, civic, or educational organizations that oversee and deliver scouting to determine how to address this issue.
230 people died in a club fire in Brazil recently. The fire was suspected to have started when the band's pyrotechnics ignited the sound insulation on the ceiling. The owner of the club and 2 members of the band were arrested for investigative purposes. The building only had one exit, which prevented firefighters from obtaining easy access. Most of the victims died of smoke inhalation.
The President of Egypt recently declared a state of emergency and instated a curfew in 3 major cities. This was done after 4 days of escalating violence in the streets between police and protesters of the president's government. The state of emergency suspends the regular judicial process and grants the police extraordinary powers.
North Korea now declares the United States as their target while they continue to ignore UN sanctions. They are advancing and testing their nuclear warhead capabilities.
According to the state news agency KCNA, the North Korea National Defense Commission stated, "We are not disguising the fact that the various satellites and long-range rockets we will fire and the high level of nuclear tests we carry out are targeted at the United States."
An amputee with a bionic leg climbed to the top of the Sears Willis Tower as part of a charity event. The man who lost his right leg in a motorcycle accident was fitted with a bionic leg that responds to electrical pulses from the muscles in his hamstring. He is now the first person to climb 103 floors using a bionic limb.
And that's all for your news in a hurry. If you'd like to learn more about a story, you can find our show notes in the description.
You can also find our email there if you would like to suggest a story. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the news in a hurry.